Hi, my name is Chastity Waters, and today I'll be showing you the platform known as Newsela, which is a great tool for engaging students in reading. What I really love about this platform is that students can choose different areas of what they're interested in reading. For example, if you look at news, there's different subject areas that are curated with different articles that they can choose from, such as law, health, arts, sports, or opinion. And even when you look at opinion, it shows a lot of argumentative text that students can read and helps not only with their reading but also with their writing. Now, many times I use this tool to actually assign different articles for students to read. For example, right now we are reading the Odyssey because I teach ninth grade English. And in order for them to be prepared to read the Odyssey, I had them read information on the Trojan War. So let me look up Trojan War real quick. And when that comes up, there's this article that questions whether or not the Trojan War was real or not. So I assigned that article for them to really consider about the war in itself, about what the reason for the war was. So I assigned them this reading that talks about the war itself, and I also assigned them another reading that shows how the war started to begin with. But what I love about Newsela is not only can they choose what they want to read in certain instances, but they can also put the lexile. A lot of times when students go to libraries, they might find something they're interested in, but the lexile level might not be what they need to be reading at. With Newsela, you can choose the lexile that fits them best. So, for example, let's say they read at a 690 lexile, they can read the article and then take the quiz at that reading level. And the words also change. So I'll show you real quick. Like, let's say I changed it back to 990. Notice the words changing here. So it changes it to whatever that student's reading level is at. Another great thing about Newsela is that not only can students type notes, but I can also type notes. So let's say they are reading the Trojan War and there's something that I want them to grasp while they're reading it, I might take a note right there. Like I might mention that Odysseus in the Odyssey was the leader of the Greeks who fought in the war. So I can actually write that Odysseus was the leader for the Greeks, fought in or at Troy. So when I put that there, the students will see that as they're reading and will help them understand more what they are reading. There's many different things out there that have promoted Newsela. I know many other teachers that I work with promote it, and that's honestly how I found out about it by a previous teacher who taught the grade I taught. But even EdSurge states that it's great for not only is it important for students to understand the main idea of something, but it's also good for them to connect to things that are interesting to them in their lives. So not only are these different topics that are interesting to students, but it is also things that are going on in the world. We're not seeing fiction in here, which is good for students to read fiction, but it's also good for them to know what is currently going on in the world, the things that actually are happening. There's many times where I've assigned articles that I assigned just for students to know what's going on in the world. Like there was one article that I assigned that showed people in Thailand could not make the symbol that was used in the Hunger Games. Like they literally were saluting when the movie Mockingjay came out, and they were arrested for making that solution. And it was because of the fact that the government just had a military government take over, and there were students that were arrested for that. And it was very interesting for my students because they they're at that age where they like to put their mark on the world and they want to be considered independent. So seeing things like this definitely was interesting to them because it showed how there are people out there in the world that do not have the same rights that we do. Um, in fact, even the person who created Newsela, he created it with the intention of it being engaging for other students. When he created, his son actually struggled with reading, and it even says it earlier on in here that he struggled. It said about the same time his middle son Curtis was struggling, and on a scale from 1 to 4 in his reading in New York, it was a 2, which wasn't on track. So he decided that he wanted to make reading engaging for his son and for other people out there. That way, not only are they interested, but it will also help them improve their Lexile scores. So Newsela is a great tool, and you can assign readings right there. Like, for example, let's say I assigned this one, students protesters arrested for giving Mockingjay salute to leaders. I can click create assignment, and I can select the classes. I can select whichever classes I created. And once I select the class, I can assign it. So let's say I selected second period. That means second period will read that assignment, and I can change the reading level, or I can unassign it. But I can also print the reading too. So, like if you see right here, once it loads up, let's say I want them to read something in science. If I click on the reading right here that loads up, you can actually click print, and you can either create a text set, so you can actually curate your own text set for your classes, or you can even simply print it. Like let's say you want them to take the quiz or to read the article in class, you can print the article or the article and quiz, or you can even print both of those with the answers for the quiz. This is definitely my most favorite tool I've ever used. Students get very engaged when they're reading it, and it's great for individual reading. And it also has a lot of resources for if you want to have extra text sets for what you're teaching. So if you need additional readings for students to grasp what they're learning, you can choose it from here. But also it's great for individual reading. So students can actually use this for their own time to get interested, and not only being interested in reading, but also learning at the same time. So they're not just reading about something that's not going on in the world. They're reading about things that go on in the world. And there's a lot of engaging things in here. There's even readings where students decide whether or not they think that there should be couches in school. Like even if you go to opinion right here, there's a lot of controversial things to choose from. Like right here it says, is the US more divided than ever? There's even this interesting one that says, why Winnie the Pooh is the living in the moment hero we need right now. I even mentioned this to my students, and they were wondering how Winnie the Pooh could be a hero. And there's also, it's time to diversify and reconstruct our school's reading list. That one even shows the question of whether or not we should change what schools are actually reading. And even though that might not sound intriguing, it might be intriguing for my students, considering that a lot of them would rather be able to choose what they can read instead of reading what's required for class. So this is a great tool to use. Um, I mean, even like when you look at classes, this is how you set up classes. You, once it loads up, what you do is you create the class, and once you create it, you can click Add Students, and they put either this code in, or you could just give them the link, but it's a lot easier to give them the class code. And you can put whatever name fits for that class. Like, let's say it's a different class. You can do this for any subject. You can even do it for science or social studies. But you can add them to the class. You can remove students. You can remove classes. Like if I had to remove this one for 6th and 7th period, I could do that. And students can also, when they take the quizzes on there, you can actually see their grades. Now, I won't show that area because I don't want you to see my students' information, but you can see how they're doing. Like I'm actually encouraging my students to pass a certain amount of quizzes on there in order for them to get a certain grade. And that's actually encouraging them to read a lot because let's say they don't pass a quiz, then they'll read something else. And the more they read, the more that they'll actually become better readers. And what's really great about the questions on these different quizzes is that it shows what the students need to work on. For example, I gave a reading one time at the beginning of the school year, and I was shocked by how many questions the students got wrong, but it showed me what they needed to learn. So overall, this is a great tool. There's many different criteria you can use to choose what you're teaching. You can even pick which standards you want to use. Overall, it's just a great platform to use for your students. Even if you have Spanish speaking students, you can even click Spanish if they're not all the way able to read English, or if you're teaching them Spanish and you want them to read things in Spanish to help them with their literacy in that language, you can do that. So there's a lot of things that you can do with this website, and it's all thanks to this man right here, Matthew Gross. He is the creator of this site, and he did it for his son, and it's affected millions. So it's definitely a great tool, and I highly recommend it for any teacher in any grade level for any subject. You can use it for any grade level, even 2nd grade. So there's many different things that this website is useful for any class, any age. It's just a great resource to use.